What's up, guys? Omar Aesop here with Greg Nuckols. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Omar. How are you?
Good. We haven't left this couch in 3 days. How do you feel about that?
I feel good.
I'm just gonna go to the topic today.
Okay, let's do it.
We're trying to keep this topical here. So, as you guys probably know, I'm gonna be losing weight in about a week. Going from 190 pounds to about 178, about 12 pounds. You're also now losing weight. The issue becomes how to maintain your strength while cutting.
Yeah.
What should you do? Also, will you experience strength loss? And I think for sure, to start perhaps, it depends upon how much weight you lose and what body fat percentage point you drop down to. I'm only going down like 12 points. So it's not a huge concern for me, but can you just comment like what the literature says, practical experience?
Yeah, so just kind of like my own experience, I'm down 23 pounds from where I started, which is roughly 10 and a half in communist units and kilos, whereas 23, that's the freedom unit
units.
Measure.
Yeah.
And so, so far my strength has been unaffected, which is kind of what you would expect. When looking at the literature, one of the things that matters the most is just simply your starting body fat percentage and how lean you're getting. So the more fat you start with initially, the easier it is to retain muscle as you lose weight, and kind of conversely. So also, just kind of to dispel a myth right fast.
Go.
People have this idea that it's absolutely impossible to gain muscle while you're dieting.
Go. People are gonna love this. Go.
And while it is true that obviously a caloric surplus gives you a more optimal environment for gaining muscle, there are plenty of examples in the literature where trained lifters, not like top of the world elite guys, but people who had been under the bar for a while were still able to gain strength and muscle in a calorie deficit.
Okay.
One that comes to mind right off, I believe it was on rugby players.
Okay.
So, rugby, that's a sport where like you're going to be lifting for it.
Sure.
They took these trained athletes and they put them on one of two diet protocols. Half of them were losing 1.4% of their initial body weight a week, and the others were losing 0.7% of their initial body weight per week. So you can just do the math for what rate of weight loss that would be for yourself. And the ones on the slower rate of weight loss, the 0.7% of their initial body weight per week, did actually gain muscle mass, like 2.2%, which, if you have, let's say 70 kilos of lean mass to start with, that's like 1.5 kilos of muscle. So so
they're building muscle as they're losing weight.
Yeah, which they could have probably built more if they were in a surplus.
Of course.
But until you get to a really, really high level, as long as you're in a conservative deficit, it's definitely not going to eat through all of your muscle, and you can probably actually still continue to build some muscle.
So maybe that's one of the points, is not going into too large of a deficit in the first place, right?
Right.
And also framing around how much weight you plan on losing in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. When talk to me about body fat percentage, you said past a certain threshold. Like I want to get down, 10%, somewhere around there. When does it start to become dangerous?
In terms of like actually risking muscle loss, that kind of depends person to person. Mostly just based on their own genetic makeup. So some people, that threshold may be 12-ish%. For others, they may be able to comfortably stay around 8%. And they don't really notice a big drop not big, but like a noticeable drop in muscle and strength until they go below 8%. So just kind of as an aside, fuck those people. Like that hurts me in here as a perennial fat kid.
Rick, I wanted to touch on also just talking about perceived fatigue. You're saying
yes.
Everybody knows this, that when you are losing weight, you're in a caloric deficit, right? That the weight starts to feel heavier. I'm not saying it is heavier, but to you it feels heavier. Right. Is that our perceived fatigue, like how hard the bar feels, or is that actually what's happening? Is it just harder to lift weight?
Okay, so that's a very good topic. So
thank you.
Fatigue, it has two components that interact with each other. There are physical causes of fatigue. So like if you're running a marathon, when you run out of glycogen and you hit that wall and start running really slow, like that's a very obvious physical cause of fatigue. The reason you can't hit your 1 rep max for 10 reps is because you run out of ATP and phosphocreatine stores. Like again, that's a very simple physical cause of fatigue. There are also psychological causes of fatigue. Basically, things just feel harder. And there are a few different ones. Not to get too far down that rabbit hole, one of the major ones is glycogen levels, and also like glucose storage and rate of use in your central nervous system. So those two things trend pretty linearly with perceived fatigue. So if you're in a diet, or if you're in a calorie deficit, you have lower muscle glycogen levels. You're eating fewer calories, so probably the glucose available to your central nervous system will be depressed very slightly. And so those two things actually do just make weights feel heavier. It makes it feel harder to lift a certain load. But the thing is, as long as you're not getting super shredded, and as long as you're not in too aggressive of a calorie deficit, you'll hold on to the vast majority of your muscle mass. So in, say, like a really extreme situation, you would still be able to lift just as much as before you started your diet. And what most people notice is that when they come out of that deficit, when they go back to maintenance, or when they go into a surplus, all of that strength they think they lost, it comes back very quickly.
Okay.
Like at a rate which can really only be explained by like psychological perceived fatigue.
And not actual physiological factors. Greg, so in summary, really when it comes to trying to preserve your strength while cutting, you don't want to dip down to too low of a body fat percentage. You also don't want to be in too large of a deficit. You want to frame how many pounds you want to lose. Keep in mind that psychological factors will make you feel more fatigued in general, but you kind of have to grind through that to get to your destination.
And just really briefly to touch on the nocebo effect, something that affects a lot of people is if you expect something to suck, it's going to suck more.
Right.
And so the more people saying like, oh, like you lose a ton of muscle when you're dieting, you lose a ton of strength when you're dieting, if you believe those things, that's going to influence like how you actually perceive the diet. Like,
sure.
Like that's going to make the diet seem harder, and those expectations of losing more strength will actually end up make you losing more strength.
So just think positive thoughts, bro.
We're all gonna make it, man.
Guys, that's the video. Greg, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure to check out his channel. Link is going to be in the description. If you like the video, make sure to like the damn video. If you're cutting right now, leave a comment below, and we'll be seeing all you guys, my rascals, in that next video. Peace!